Alright, and down let's show the primeval vision of the Noah's flow of the written thoughts of the Gov, cover the many generations of the Ezra, dedicated to the version 5 scribe of the reconstructed Genesis 1, 2, and 3. One of the most important things that we have first hand on the Shabbat shall report of the laying down the Strata. We explore the walls of the Grand Canyon, a moment of innovating Canyon de Cello, with a vivid description of the terrorizing wind of the indentation, which was the part of the evident. Well, part of the event language scholars say that anyone write the description had to be there and see it with his own eyes. Most important, all of the greatest archaeologist Leonard Woolley with the found with the optimism on the rooftop high with the layer of the mud of the 1920 with the clay, then the clay of the 9 feet thick, and the Tigris Euphrates River, the region of the father beneath the civilization was buried, totally different way and found from any found above it. Of course, we have more than 8,000 survival legends in the Malaya Peninsula region uncovered with the great legendary Frazar. We have the survival legend of the southwestern American Indians of the Dena'ina Bajana and the Navajo creation story by Paul G. Volbrod. We have strike legend. At the end of the fourth night, as they were at the last, about the end of their meeting, they all noticed something. White in the east, they also in the south appeared, in the west and in the north it appeared that it looked like the endless chain of the white mountains. They saw all the sides of the surrounding them, and they noticed the closing of them rapidly with a high interminable wall of water. It was flowing into them from all directions, so they could not escape neither nor the west, neither from the south nor the north could they escape. So having nowhere else to go, they took flight into the air, and they went and higher and soared, and said, from the description of life, from the following of the parts of the legend, the interpretation for the entire legend from the Cataclysms 11,500 years ago, that would take the years to work on the part of the nail of the down, the time of the one legend that don't have the years. Let's take the story of it now. And the 2 cataclysmic years ago, historians tell us 4,500 years ago, a period of 7,000 years ago, where no written history of it anywhere in the world. In Tia, Greece, Egypt fell with a characteristic interesting 7,000 plus 4,500 equals 11,500 years ago, isn't it? In light of the priest Egypt telling with the Solon of the greater intelligent Hellenic civilization, let's take a look at the Greek alphabet. It was written today as between the all written Greek history of the pronunciation the same. Take the Euclid pronunciation with changed slang of the time is old. Let's compare with the modern old, and then it shows the words alphabetic and the alphabet. If you read the old pronunciation out loud with the sound of the Polynesian, possibly with some assumption, prehistoric Mayan words which can be translated to English here, than the Greek alphabet, overwhelming breaking of the ocean, the inundated land, Mother Earth receive the deep, where the obstruction of the ark, showers of the mighty wind, the rampage over the ocean, the piling over the ocean, the bury all the living and moving, where the hills are the vanished, buried, submerged with the earth of the motherland, mounting peak alone with the sand forth below, for the onslaught of the planet which bathed little by little until there comes the cold wind, motherland, with the nose of the bottom of the earth, abyss for the various vast reserve of the frozen mother that comes from out of volcanoes, vapor burning through forth the swirling smoke with the molten Java. It appeared that it tell the story of the cataclysm which ended the Luttranian Ice Age, of the start of the Old Stone Age, of the Australian Ice Cap, that initiated the abrupt climatic change over the whole world to discover the oceanography. But of course, it was the catalysm through the Adam and Eve that survived the ending of the civilization in the eastern hemisphere. Traces of the whips of the civilization found with the legend recorded by the Hindu historian Valmiki and told of the Polynesian tribes such as the Maurya. Stories apparently were handed down verbally with generation to generation through 5,000 years period with no written history. The after knows or the Uniphilism flood with the history of the star of the written and became the base of the Greek alphabet. Factually, legendary mythology, or maybe even historically, semi-historically, whichever there may be, the vision for a story of the assassinating incident, which for the pursuit of the fur of the Don and Antiopetra of the Cataclysms, history of the Central American John James Churchward's Law of the Continental Mew. The Churchward makes many mistakes, but his words are interesting reading, and his unexacting treatment of calendar gated to Tahiti, making one question sometimes cursory methods. History of the before cataclysm 11,500 years ago comes to use us and forms the legends we can understand. Those legends of these origins far better than the history of the cataclysm. The Greek alphabet exhibit the two forms of the Greek history, where David coming from before that and appear with the direct descent of the prehistoric man and the god. Perhaps the answer lies with the megaliths, the ruins of the glyphs of the range of the Matteo, Grossi of the Dis, Deutschland, Finland, England, Friesland, and all we can say with this time that there are prehistoric secrets of the Hellions. Now we must leave with the pleasure of the intro of the hypothesis, return to the more serious of the consideration, let's discover the more exclusive of the piece of the puzzle, the part that has taken 20 years to derive, fit into the puzzle, trigger they call it the catalysm. I thought of the back to the George Carver challenge of the word science that he wrote in 1812 to discover the cause of the events. Dr. Hibbins' contemporary adjunct to the challenge of the reliable, inseparable part and good solution to the consuming the mystery of the mouse to answer all the facts. As the years went by, remaining dissatisfied with all the concepts, assuming the trigger of the concentrated the part of the puzzle has taken 20 years to find a satisfactory solution, one which answers all the facts. Fascinating work of the Swedish plant physicist Heinz Alfven lighted the tortoise path over the answer in the 1950s, discovered the kind of energy that nobody even thought of existed, labeled it magnetohydrodynamic energy, abbreviated as and called MHD. Actually, it is a combination of magnetic, electrical, physical forces. It can be described best as what I call the kitchen example. Suppose if you take a glass cylinder containing mercury at the room temperature, everyone know the molten liquid under those conditions. It's so the density of the float, glass mirror on the top of it. Let's do that. That makes sense over the scratches in the mirror. If the shine light goes down into the mirror, light beams will reflect on the ceiling, showing the image of the scratch of the mirror of the ceiling. Now let's put agitator with the miniature version of the washing machine, agitator at the bottom of the cylinder, mercury with the shaft of the axle with the going through the bottom of the cylinder, fastening the agitator. Let's put the handle end of the shafting sticking out of the bottom of the cylinder with which can whip the agitator for back and forth with the handle slowly, only because the mercury is on the dense and heavy agitated mercury in a glass cylinder. When we agitate the mercury of the fashion, find the slipperiness of the mercury atom. The atom is greater than all the motion of the agitator absorbed the mercury before the reach of the top of the surface of the mirror is, and the mirror won't budge. If we wind wire across the glass cylinder, if connecting it to the battery, we have the electromagnetic field in the same principle of the doorbell with your home. There's an electrical current flowing through around the cylinder, magnetic field that goes through the cylinder end to end. Notifying the things that have challenges with the rotate of the agitator back and forth. Mercury acts as plastic near solid. Mirror makes the move of the agitator rather than showing that the mercury has lost internal slipperiness, moving integrally as if we were almost solid. Often tried to refine a version of the experiment in laboratory that has phenomenon. We discovered the first reason for the tiny electrical charge called eddy currents, which being generated from the mercury was determined to generate the tiny local opposing magnetic field, and this was causing solidifying effect. He reasoned that if they were true in larger diameter, he made a glass cylinder bigger than the electrical current and stronger than the magnetic field would have been to maintain the same physical force link between the agitator and the mirror. He built another agitator vessel with a large diameter cylinder of mercury found with the reverse. So to be true, with the larger diameter glass cylinder, less magnetic field strength, the electrical current needed to maintain physical forces linked between the agitator and the mirror, seemingly broken into all the rules known in physics and engineering. He often realized that he had been discovered the existence of the kind of energy traveling agitator of the mirror, which previously undetected by any scientific rigorously mathematical work of expanding James Clerk Maxwell three indigenous equation expressing the electromagnetic radiation radio broadcast and showed that there were electromagnetic physical forces fielding acting with a combined field between the agitator and mirror. Often explained with the mathematical reach of in the space of the literally shape of the middle of the MHD energy that weak as the magnetic field of the blue white with a shell that is strong enough to support the internal MHD with the energy structure within the star. Hopkins' work supplied with any planet with only one each the north and south magnetic pole. I have built several Earth current recording stations known as personal observation that Earth currents are strong enough to support the planet's inner MHD structure. Now you know that the molten layers inside of the Earth just act like the cylinder of the mercury of the Alpha's experiment. As long as you are permeated with the MHD, the energy that acts as if they were plastic near solid. We also know that the shell of the Earth, which include the ocean and the crust of the tiny part of the man with the dynamic balance for the sands. Today, roughly, the computation show that there are huge torque of the 4.86 times, let's just say a zillion tons of miles, tending to rotate in the shell of the Earth interior of the Greenland, Antarctica, could move toward the equator less than half of the day with the shell free with a make of the shift. As long as the inner MHD energy structure remains strong enough to make the molten layers as near the solid of the shell, but not shift the position about the Earth's interior. To be sure that the shell is shifting ever so gradually, the subject is covered excellently with a paper to latitude, longitude with the circular motion of the pole by Dr. Markowitz of the U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C. However, at the time of the catalysm, the entire of the solar system passed with the magnetic null zone of the Milky Way galaxy. The null zone, sometimes popularly called the reversal zone, so they are for the magnetic fields on either side of the galactic null zone are opposite directions. Some of the physicians have found that they're heading into another null zone at the accelerating rate. It is a known fact that geologists, physics, Earth's magnetic field strength is now over 35% less than 300 years ago. Decreasing faster and faster, but indeed approaching the null zone. In any case, going through the null zone, our planet's inner MHD energy structure is diminished to the extent that our shown molten layer, the 60 miles thick, it allowed the Earth to act as free liquid. No longer does it bind and shovel the Earth in the interior of the which surface 120 miles deep. The mirror was bound through a mercury to the aggregator of the MHD energy of the Haynes-Alvin's experiment. Shovel the Earth retrieved defined with a new dynamic balance for the Earth interior with a shift of the direction, torque, imbalance. Shovel the dictate with the ship must go to find the new balance within 60 miles deep of the white hot with a 2,500 degree Fahrenheit molten layer beneath the outer side of the shell. Solid shell lubricate the shift all the way. Triggers them out of the planet's passage along the entire solar system through the gigantic scale of the magnetic null zone with diminishing the Earth's inlet MHD energy so low that the level of the shallow molten layer is starting at 60 miles deep, extending to 120 miles deep, allowed to act free liquid lubricating layer between the Earth and shell of the solid interior. During each catalysm, the shell finds its new dynamic balance resolved within the shell with a shift to the position of the ice cap rotating equilaterally, balancing with the heating of the torrid zone as they melt relatively fast, usually resolved around the 8 million cubic miles of ice, as they do today. The oceans worldwide, after the ice melt rises above 200 feet, with the newfound water, new polar ice caps form as areas move into the polar region and not centered one or axis rotation. Growing imbalance created with the growth of the new ice cap for the resolve of the Earth, the entire solar system passed through the entire another galactic null zone 10,500 years later. Regarding shallow molten layer, with some of the theologists and seismologists and challenges exist in 1924, the greatest seismologist, the great seismologist Benio Gutenberg derived from his earthquake seismograph records for that layers must be there, since their Hawaiian seismologists have said, of course, the source of the molten stuff of the volcano spit. To forth, other seismologists said, well, 1 and 1 is there, but not molten. It's plastic nor near solid. They are both right. It's molten and acts as near solid because of the MHD content. Oceanography gives an answer for the IGY. Data showing the ocean tides of the world over the depth of the ocean floors of the 3 months, 3/10 of the increase of the depth of the water. Between the low and high tide of the molten layer has been between the ocean floor and the floor of the pushed into the Earth just a few feet of water. But surely there's a lift of the universe there over our Milky Way galaxy. So surely there is life in our galaxy, our solar system, the transfer of another magnetic null zone, and indeed many more. This brings us to the subject of the next catalysm. As mentioned before, the Hales mathematical analysis for the Wisconsin area 14,750 years ago, the last catalysm, the up the Euphrates flood that would appear with the 6,993 years ago, Adam and Eve, the catalysm that ends with the Luteranian Ice Age appears to be close to 11,543 years ago. Hale's mathematician showed the null over the dome of the time structure for the helicoid with the edge of the universe approach for the half point with the catalysm of the edge of the arc, and created the frequency with the short error of the time period for the between and the after of the universe of the past and the half-life catalysm, the curve of the decreasing frequency within the time period between the increasing of the mirror image pattern first half-life of the universe appear with the universe half-life. It is the middle of the Sudan and means of the which over the first and longer area of the Sudan basin which embrace half-life point and one Arctic area of the mirror of the Hudson Bay area which was 7,000 year duration. We now can reconstruct the table of page 24 with the show of the 7th area of the 4th, the path of the present to the future, reading from the end of, and then it showed the duration years. Unknown Bagel, Arctic Ocean, Sudan Basin, Hudson Bay, Caspian Sea, and Wisconsin. Alright, of course, there are many errors preceding the Wisconsin era. There were equal numbers found with the unknown error. You can see with the dark period, but they're not written in the history of the Sudan Basin era. Look for the prehistory with a different viewpoint with a standard of the present civilization. We can see that it took over 5 years, 1,000 years, just after the man started with the feet with the Stone Age, forced ignorance, and took about another 1,000 years to learn, travel intelligently, to begin with, overcome superstitions, to establish worthwhile with the communications, to be probably enough to make it pottery enough to make it enough to any significant progress in medicine. Progress of civilization can be measured by the changing of the man's attitude toward the woman and child, with the birth, the devil, the drug, the doctor, with the Howard W. Haggard, M.D. I can remember when the obstetrician was considered the lowest of the low of the medical profession. The main male inferiority complex was manifested throughout the being history, starting with the Old Testament of the 7th century with the Inquisition, when 98% of the 3 million burned into the state were of the woman and the property rights of the inheritance of voting law, through the income inequalities, through the period John rape of the worldwide has outgrown it yet. If we look at the technical accomplishment that we took over the 6,900 years to achieve, that we could, if what we could do, what we could do if we had 10,500 years. Would we be in space with commonly walk around with a block with a fossil field with nuclear energy would belong to the dead path of man-made gravity we know how to accomplish right now. Natural magnetism, which we also know how to use right now, would be the means of the propulsion, the power, regeneration, the communication, as we have learned to process the nature of the exhibition, we duplicate with the control fashion or its uses, for our uses. It appears the legend passed of the drum in the Caspian Sea with the Wisconsin era. The man did just that. With 10,500 to 14,750 years of era of the head valve, making a raise of the Romanian Brahmanian weapon endured the door of the celestial carrots, and more legends of me when they landed with greater technical achievements for the well of the moral perversion beyond the comparison spring from the Caspian Sea with the era. A fall of legends carry over the 7,000 Hudson Bay era of the throne, with some of the retention of the knowledge through the Cataclysms of the 8,543 years ago. If we look to Nostradamus, we find the predictions end about 2,000 years AD. Whether we accept him or not, Edgar Cayce predicts the Cataclysm about years would be about 1,999 AD. Hale's mathematics indicates one to be coming at about the year 2080. As far as considered, I am satisfied with these figures with the Cataclysm. Sometimes some Cataclysm do sometime between 7,200 years from now. If had Ruthar's meaning of the fundamental with available, would put the entire subject with an intensively all-out applied mathematical problem to determine precisely possibly how much time we have before the next Cataclysm. Then undertake an intensive study to determine what we must do in the time we have left to prepare for it. Wouldn't you? Conclusion: India, Greece, and Egypt. And I guess that's 3 pages long. And we'll just read it real quick. When India, king of the gods, with the control of the Titan, the hell, with the water, with the earth, with the captive, with the trail, with the return, with the heights, with the central mountain, with the song, with the range running, with the water within his ears. But where his dwelling once stood, he saw the only ruins in ash. For the summoned the Viscarmian god of works for the arts, and asked him to build with another place for the man. March his power, the architect, with the set of the works of the tomb and the tower to build with the garden, the road, with the lake, among the lakes, woods. Indira that urged him to forward with impatiently each for the day, but he called some of the fresh for marble pavilions, with much with richly injured statue of the grave, with the numbering of the cunning of the fear, see to be burned in him the Vascurian, has exhausted his labor to decided to lay with the compliant before the creator of the world. Brahim received him with a great ear. Approved and went and played with his case for the Vaishnava, the supreme meeting. He help was promised. So young Brahman appeared with the king's palace with the demand with the audience, the charm of the life of his eye, within grand with his request, the O king, with the messenger of the palace should be made with the noblest of all, with the boys were with the tree, with the India's ear, with the rejoice, with the Vaishnava messenger, sure continuing shot with the noblest of the play, with the injury of the because they themselves would solve the bill, with the king became the uneasy, does thou say with the thou word with the injuries, or with the other Viscarian be. For ourselves the other places before mine, indeed, yes, and the youth answered, I have seen them. Moreover, I have seen the other world arrive at the vanishing, like a torso with a shell come in the infinite, the ocean sinking back. I presume the down of the twilight is the cycle of the past, counting within the numbers in which I could account with all the Indras and Vikrims and the Vishnu and Brahms falling as one another and it's some weird fucking name. O Solon with the Hellenes, they're both shown with an old doctrine handled down among you with the ancient tradition, or any son of the hoary with the age will tell you the reason behind this, or this will be again any destruction of mankind arising out of many have caused the greater have then brought through earth and fire with the indignation, whether it happened either with your country or ours, or any other country which we are informed, any action with the noble, the greater, any other way remarkable would have taken place, although they inscribed long ago within our temple of records, whereas other nations do not keep imperishable records with the after a period of time the unusual indignation visits like with the pestilence leveled with only those who have the destiny with the life, the education of those who have the beginning, and all over the children know nothing of what happened in the ancient time among ourselves. As for genealogy of the years, if they have related to this, no better than the tale of the first play, but remember to divulge only where there be the numbers of them, and any with the next play, but the development of their land, which do not know, but the affairs of the noblest race, than the men ever lived, which are brought with the seas, raminant with the known, because of for many generations of the survivorship of the destruction, made no records. Plato Tishmius spoken by the priests of Egypt. Alright, therefore we will not fear through the earth, though the earth be removed, through the mountains be carried in the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, through the mountains shake, will be swollen thereof. Psalm 46, the author. And then it goes into a second book called The Aftermath of Adam and Eve's Story by Shan Thomas, which I'll read some other time.